Hello, BookTube. I have a tag for you on this snowy Tag Tuesday here in Boston. This is the yet another random questions tag, which was created by James Holder, and he tagged me when he originally made the video, and I checked my videos. I don't think I ever did this. So I'm gonna try it again. I will double check before I post this just to make sure that I don't post it twice. But it's just random questions, which I love. Absolutely love. Can't get enough of these kinds of things. Question number one is, what is a book you don't want to admit you hate or dislike? Isn't a single one. I'm in the business of saying what I like and dislike. I'm professionally engaged in not hiding those opinions, so I make sure they're known. Question number two, are there authors whose work you haven't gotten on with that you want to revisit? A steadily rotating roster of them. Both contemporary authors and especially quasi-canonical authors, especially writers from the 20th century, where my reactions are fresh and my reactions are still hot. So even though the author's long gone and the work is over, I might have strong, too steady opinions about them. So I routinely make a roster of such people, and it changes from year to year. I've had some success and some failure. I revisited Hemingway, for instance, enough times to know it's not me, it's him. I've visited Faulkner enough times I have strongly suspect that it's not me, it's him. But the more I read Steinbeck, the more I think that it might be more me than him. That I might end up really enjoying this author more than I currently do. I had, for instance, that experience with the poet Auden, whose work I had largely written off as somewhat obvious, and then I took almost a year to really crawl my way through his poetry, read it out loud, ponder it, read about him, read biographies of him, and it made a big difference. So yeah, there are authors that it's not the same author. There's a roster that I regularly go to. Question number three is your TBR outlined or pantsed? Pants referring here to seat of the pants. And my TBR, my to be read pile is definitely not outlined. I know some booktubers, I really love watching their channels where they plan their TBRs down to the last detail. I can't imagine that. I can't imagine doing that. I imagine that would make more sense if I had very, very limited reading time and needed to keep it on schedule in order for it to be satisfying to me at the end of any month. But I have unlimited reading time, so I don't do that. I don't quite pants. I think I'm probably the same here as in NaNoWriMo. I probably plants. I probably a combination of planning and pantsing for my TBR. It's never quite seat of the pants because a huge chunk of it is books that I'm reading in a fairly set order. I arrange my new releases, my forthcoming books, by month and then by release date, 4 different chunks of each shelf for each release date, for each release week. And I try not to mess around with that too much. I will read ahead in that all the time, I do. But when we're grinding closer to the time when I will be reading it critically in order to write a review or to advise other people on reviews that they're writing, well, then I want to do that in order. And if there's a book that I have read that's coming out in a month and I hated it, well, I have to keep silent on it. It's totally bad form to rip apart a book that has no chance to defend itself. And the only chance a book has to defend itself is for people to read it and like it. So if it's a month out from the market, that's dirty pool. That's not fair to anybody. So it's not quite pantsed. There is a rough structure to it, a rough chronological structure. I would say the only part of my TBR that is pantsed completely are the random serendipitous finds that I have at places like the Brattle Bookshop here in Boston. And that might not be, that is pants, but it's not really a TBR. Those things get read pretty quickly. Then question number 4 is, what is your favorite BookTube reading event? That's tough because a lot of them are really, really good. There are new ones like June on the Range or Garb August that have gone straight to my heart. Then there are older ones like Nonfiction November or March Mystery Madness that I also love. I don't know that I could pick a favorite. It largely depends on the month. March has a whole bunch of, it has March of the Mammoths, it has March Mystery Madness. These are things I really love. So I don't know that I could pick a favorite. I'm going to be just a doting parent and say that I love them all. Number 5 is, how many works does it take to decide if you like or dislike an author's work? It's a great question. I mentioned many times on this channel how much I love debut novels, for instance. Really debut works of any kind, but especially debut novels, because if it's a debut work of history or biography, a lot more eyes are going to be on it. There's usually a lot more superstructure of accountability behind such a book. Whereas with a novel, the superstructure of accountability has always been weak. In the last 50 years, that superstructure has always been weak, and now it's non-existent. Because if a novel is bad, an author can say, well, I'm neurodivergent. I intended it to be bad. And if you don't like how the ways in which it's bad, you're a bigot. You've always hated neurodivergent people. If a novel is unstructured, an author can say, well, my indigenous folklore group that makes up 1% of my bloodline have an oral tradition that is largely chaotic, and I'm doing them credit. If you don't like the fact that my story doesn't make any sense and my characters aren't consistent, you're a bigot. And I will, of course, publish that detail. I will go online and do a crusade about you being a bigot. You'll lose your job, your home, everything. Whatever little superstructure there was of accountability for fiction is largely gone now. But also, at the same token, it's a broad open canvas. If somebody's going to write it, if their debut work is going to be on the Battle of Naseby, it's not a broad open canvas. In fact, it's a very narrow corset. Whereas a debut novel, well, the world's your oyster. You can do anything in a debut novel. And I love that feeling, even though it almost always disappoints me. So far in 2023, it has universally disappointed me, almost, with one exception. All the debut novels that I have read have been exactly the kind of belligerently self-entitled crap that I was just describing a minute ago. I don't know why I bother, but I will keep bothering. Of course, I will keep bothering. I will read every high-end, mid-profile debut novel that comes out in 2023. But there's a magic to that broad, open field, that untouched canvas that I really, really like, and go into them all with an open mind. But then I pay attention, right? If you write a debut novel, I pay attention to what you're doing. What are you good at, and what are you not good at? What are some tics that you seem to have? I won't know if they're tics until the next book, but they seem it. They don't seem like they're under your control. They seem like you're an indulgence on your part. So in answer to the question, usually it's 2 or 3 books. 2 or 3 books, if we're talking fiction here, is enough time for me to know what you're in control of, what you're not in control of. Most importantly, are there things you're not in control of that have been brought to your attention that you are intentionally not controlling? If that is usually the case with the unbelievably belligerently entitled contemporary literary fiction authors today, especially the young ones who are only have a book or 2 under their belt, they become viscerally angry if it is pointed out to them some aspect of their craft that they're not doing well, that they could fix. They become viscerally angry, and of course, they don't become viscerally angry alone. They are at the head of a mob, and they are willing to use that mob against anyone who criticizes them. So 2 or 3 books is usually enough time for me to figure out whether or not you have any interest in getting any better at what you're doing. Let's see here. Question number 6 is, which of the 7 deadly sins do you experience the most? I've mentioned this on this channel, but it's been a while, and we have new people here. This channel has surpassed 14,000 subscribers. Then a few days later, it surpassed 14,100 subscribers. Then a few days after that, it surpassed 14,200 subscribers. So there are new people here who haven't watched every one of the 6,000 videos that I've made. For me, of the 7 deadly sins, it's wrath, which is different from anger, right? Anger, if someone steps on your toe or says something mean to you, you can be angry about that. Wrath is different. Wrath is anger that feeds itself. Wrath is anger that likes being alive, that doesn't want to be quenched. It's a very bad failing of mine. I try to control it. It's fenced off all around. It's really, really hard to get me genuinely wrathfully angry. That is really hard to do. I have set up fences all around it to make it hard to do, but I can't get rid of the thing behind the fence. I wish I could. I'm not advanced enough morally, I guess. So I just have to watch for it. I have to watch against it all the time. Question number 7 is, which of the Olympian gods is your favorite? For me, it would be Apollo, because he's the only one who showed up on Star Trek. And Who Mourns for Adonis is one of my favorite Star Trek episodes. You protest, you risk much. Question number 8 is, what is your go-to special event meal? I know exactly what James is getting at here, but I'm afraid I have a bratty, uncooperative answer. which is that my favorite go-to special event meal is all about the people. Has nothing to do with the food. Nothing at all. The food is really an afterthought. Of course, I stereotypically here at Hyde Cottage mention wine and calzones, but it could be nothing at all. It's the people that I care about. The special event for me will always be people, and with them, the food is low down on the list. So I don't, as far as a meal goes, I don't have any special events on my own. Special events, to me, special events are for company. I don't have any. I enjoy my daily life, so I don't have any special events that are private. So I guess if I did, it would be something like, an extra special birthday cake or something like that. But I don't. All the special events that I would ever have or could even conceive of would be public. There'd be a whole bunch of people in this room, and there I wouldn't care about the food. Although I would try to care for the sake of the guests. I would be fully 100% of the enjoyment I'd be getting would be from the people and not the food. Question number 9 is, do you attend local celebrations, fairs, festivals, markets, etc.? No. No, I do not. The closest I ever come is sometimes in the summer when the Boston Public Library in Copley Square is having its Boston Public Library book sale. Sometimes when that's happening, directly across the street will be one of those open air vegetable markets, farmer type things with herbs and, stuff in boxes and whatnot. And sometimes I will go over there because some of the people who are vendors, some of the vendors bring their dogs. I want to make the rounds and smooch faces and do all that sort of thing. But usually I go nowhere near any events like this. In the past, it was simple. They're just gross. It's just absolutely gross. If you're going to have a local event or a fair that you want me to attend, make sure it's 100% about books. But even then, so much wasted time when I could be at home reading. But now I have the perfect excuse. I can just say, well, there was a pandemic, so I don't even need to make an excuse anymore. But no, my answer is a universal blanket no. Question number 10 is, do you prefer the city, the suburbs, small towns, or the country? I have lived in all 4 of these. And again, I'm going to give a bratty, uncooperative answer, and that is honestly, my preference changes where I am. I have lived in all of those places, not just visited, but lived for periods of time. And there are things to love, genuinely, passionately love about all 4 of them. So when I move, if I shift from one to the other, and I find myself suddenly in a suburb or a small town, I shift to the things that are lovable about that area, and I don't look back. So that's not a cooperative answer here, I'm afraid. Let's see if we can do better with the next question. Number 11 is, are there any BookTube videos you have a hard time making? There's a BookTube video, a kind of BookTube video that I absolutely love, and I don't have a hard time making it. I can't make it at all, and I really wish I could. And that is the vlog, an actual spliced vlog. Like I watch them all the time on Sarah's channel, The Bookish Knitter, where you set up the camera and you make a daily update on something or other, or maybe every little something or other, for about 5 or 10 minutes. In my case, it would probably be 30 minutes on a day, and then you put that file aside and you turn on the camera and make an update the next day, and then the next day, and then the next day, and then at the end, you splice them all together into a vlog. I've done vlogs on this channel before, but they're always in one take. They're not that because I don't edit my videos, and I don't know how to splice like that. I would love to be able to do that, at least to try it. I think those would be a lot of fun, but who knows? Maybe they're in the future. You never can tell. Could be something out there, some software out there that's simple enough for me to understand. Only a year ago, I would have said that live streams were totally beyond my capability, and now they not only are a thing that I regularly do, but I love them. Although I haven't done one recently. I know that. I'm well aware of that. I do not need the 20 emails a day. I'm well aware there hasn't been a Steve stream in a while. I'm thinking it will happen soon. Let's see here. Question number 12 is, are you interested in local history? I am. Very much interested in local history. Question number 13, what subjects were your favorites in school? Here my answer is going to border on the bratty and the uncooperative. My favorite subjects in school were independent studies. That's what my school called them. Maybe yours does too. Where I could go off and do my own thing. I was very much accountable to the professor, but I did not have to be in class tapping my finger on the desk impatiently while Clem Kadiddlehopper in the back of the class is trying to grope his way through Troilus and Cresside for the first time, understanding nothing. Yeah. Or if I was sitting in the back row and I was staring at Clem Cadiddlehopper's shoulders in his tank top and not paying attention to the class. I much preferred independent studies, where I go to the first day of class, then I go to the professor, I take him aside and say, can we go up the hill to the airliner for lunch and I can propose something to you? I want to do an independent study for your class. You haven't offered them. They aren't on your syllabus. It doesn't seem like something that you've thought of, but I would like to do that. Basically, I want your permission not to attend class and to do work on a slightly deeper level that I will submit to you. Is there any chance that we can work out a version of this class that does not involve my participation in the class? And thankfully, a very large number of professors, they all sort of smiled over their cinnamon buns or whatever and said, you're right, no one ever has proposed that, but I like it. I'll try that. Absolutely. I want to be very strict. I don't want you lazing off. I want you to be doing as much work as everybody else in class. So let's let's work together and come up with a structure for what this independent study will be and how accountable you will be every week. I don't need you to account every day, but every week I need accountability, visible accountability of what you're doing with an end goal of a project we both agree on. I had a large number of professors who agreed to that. And those were my favorites in any subject, no matter what there was. Those things were done in all kinds of subjects, not just English and history, but natural history, the biology of bats, that sort of thing. They covered. I made that proposal to virtually every professor who seemed at all willing to agree to it, and a lot of them took me up on it. Let's see here. Question number 14 is: if you could go back in time and change one thing in your life, what would it be? I guess I'm fated to give bratty, non-cooperative answers to all of these questions. First of all, it's just possible that my life had a dividing line between when I was just living every day forward, headlong, with momentum and no real introspection, and when I no longer was, when I no longer made the incredible mistake of taking any time for granted. When, let's say, a perfectly well-meaning oncologist is sitting across the desk from you saying, these don't look good, but we're fairly optimistic, we're guardedly hopeful here, we will try to find you some good time, some quality time. And you realize what that person is saying is just one other thing they have to do that day is giving you a death sentence. And you're staring at a tie clip. And you're suddenly realizing that all that forward momentum that you took for granted is on the table and could be gone. It's possible that lots of people have had a moment like that, a moment in their life that suddenly stops them from assuming that they're going to live to 90 and get everything done in time. And hypothetically or not, I don't do that anymore. At all. Not at all. And so, if that hypothetical point were a long, long time ago, well, then it's been a long, long time that I have lived my life very intentionally without doing as anything that I can go back and change. There are things that have happened to me, done by other people or by random chance. But it would be kind of servile, kind of snivelly to use this question to say, I want to go back and change one of those. I want to go back and change one of those times when life was mean to me. I think this question is more about a choice that you have made that you would go back and do over. And there are choices like that in my life. But even though I now try to live without that kind of mistake, they do still happen naturally. And even so, my answer is still going to be uncooperative because I wouldn't go back and change anything. I wouldn't go back and change anything. I won't quote Jim Kirk here. I want my pain. I need my pain. I will just say, I'm not interested in that kind of revision. I am happy with who I am now, and I am the product of all that stuff, the good and the bad choices and the good ones, the things that hypothetically I might want to change, and the things that I'm perfectly happy that they happened the way they did. And once you start on that route, well, where does it stop? Right? Where does it stop? I held my best friend in my arms while he was dying. If I could make one of these decisions, wouldn't I say, well, could I postpone that day a year? Maybe 2 years? Maybe 10 years? And what would I miss? What would I not have in my life if I did that? I wouldn't go back and change anything, is what I'm saying. And then question number 15 is, are there any childhood entertainments that you still engage in? Yes. Yes, there are. There's one main one. My childhood did not feature humans very prominently at all. I was raised and socialized by a different species. Wasn't I, baby? I spend a lot of time with that species, even now. And when I get the chance, all day long, every day, with my one baby Bean, but also with lots of dogs in the neighborhood, English doesn't come into it. Human thought, human presumptions. Oh, you think you're a people. They don't enter into it at all. It's just childhood. It's just my childhood all over again. There are plenty of dogs in this neighborhood where I don't have to deal with their humans. They're just out in their yard. I can just deal with them. And a lot of their humans know that. I've been here a long time. A lot of them know that. A lot of them will just laugh. We'll meet on the dog walk, and maybe they'll be with a friend, and their dog will be pulling at the leash when they see me. They're not pulling to get to Frida. They already know that she doesn't like them. She's not going to do anything to them except just look at them disdainfully. They're pulling to get to me. And there are a lot of people in this neighborhood who maybe they're walking the dog with a friend who's in town for a visit. And I've heard a lot of them say, oh, yeah, the friend will be curious because they haven't seen the dog act this way with anybody else. Then the dog's human will say, yeah, he reacts this way to Steve, and we're just going to leave them alone for a bit. So don't bother trying to say hi to him or anything like that. And don't think I'm being rude that I'm not talking to him. Let's give them a little time first. And I indulge in that childhood enjoyment, that childhood entertainment all the time, as often as I can. And that hasn't changed. I hope it never changes. But as for the rest of it, well, that comes with its own. Those childhood people did their own thing, right? We ate food off the ground. We smelled all sorts of things on trees and fence posts. To talk to each other, that sort of thing. This tag has been full of vagueness and uncooperative answers. I guess it's just because I'm not the typical. I don't know what the reason is. So this is yet another random questions tag. I don't know that it was exactly satisfying to the tag's creator, but them's the ways. I call them like I see them. So that is the tag. The only thing that's left to do is tag people. And James made this a while ago, and he tagged a lot of people. I don't know who has done this and who hasn't. I'm once again going to punt and say that if these questions are interesting to you, especially if you can answer them better than I did, feel free. It would be hard to answer them worse than I did. But I'm going to wrap this up, and I will be back. Thank you, BookTube.